You are listening to Esoteric Discussions with Valentine St. Aubyn on Peterborough FM, www.peterborough.fm.
Hello and welcome to Esoteric Discussions with me, your host, Valentine St. Aubyn, a show where we go deep down into the rabbit hole. You can catch me every other Wednesday evening here from 9 on Peterborough FM and online. If you want to learn more about me, please visit my website at valentinesaint.aubyn.co.uk. So it's the 4th of April 2012 and we've been going through a Mercury retrograde phase and we are finally coming through the other side of it. It officially goes direct today, the planet Mercury. Mercury rules all things dealing with communication. So that includes computer equipment, mobile phones, any kind of electrical devices, traveling, your thought process, contracts, communication, emails. If you've been having any difficulties connecting with people, trying to get things together, maybe you might be trying to organize an event and you just haven't been getting very much success in terms of communication either way. All these things are ruled by the planet Mercury. So we've been going through quite an extensive phase. This happens about 3 times a year where Mercury, we call it a retrograde, but it's not really moving backwards. It just appears to be moving backwards. The planets do that from time to time. They go into these phases. We currently have Saturn in a retrograde phase as well. So it's a cycle of things, and we have been going through a cycle of Mercury. But as I said, it's now turning direct, and you will start to notice things starting to move forward again slowly. We're still in the shadow period, so we're not fully clear. So if you need to sign any important documents, I would still just say hang on just a bit longer, because what happens whenever you initiate anything during a Mercury retrograde phase, you find that you have to go back and look at the details. There's a reworking of things. So I mean, if you don't mind going back and having to redo things, then by all means go for it while you're doing, while Mercury is in retrograde. If you want to just go ahead and go for a project, go for it. But do know that sometimes when you do that, when Mercury goes direct, there'll be issues and you'll have to go backwards and readdress a few things. So if you've been having problems, know that they will clear up, and you will find that the energy will be a lot more easygoing and allowing you to progress forward. So tonight I have a very interesting show. I've got a fantastic guest coming on very shortly. His name is Stanley Stewart, and he is a master wizard, and he's going to be talking to us about modern wizardry, about what it is and what it's not, and it's very different from what you might think it is. This is not Harry Potter stuff. This is much wider than that. It's got nothing to do with magic in that sense. And he's going to be talking about what wizardry actually is, because over the centuries it's been hijacked. So, it's with all of this type of information, it's very important to get the right kind of individual, the right kind of guest to come onto the show to explain these concepts, and I have been looking for the right person to sort of help define this area more clearly, and I finally have found him. And if you'd like to just visit the website in advance, you can. The website address is www.artofmodernwizardry.org. And you can go onto the website and have a look. All of the information is available for free. You don't have to pay anything. There's no subscription fees to learn, and it gives you all the basic concepts about what wizardry is. So when we are joined by my guest, we'll be talking about some of the concepts, like what treeing is, what the one is, and what actually wizardry is. So I think it's going to be very interesting. So stick around for that. But before I get into all of that, I've been doing a special in the last few intros, and I don't have very much time. I've only got about 5 minutes really to go through a few of the things I want to talk about tonight. But previously I've been talking about signs in the sky because there's been so many things going on in the sky since the beginning of the year. There's always things going on. There's always people seeing things. There's always sightings. That's nothing different. The difference, though, since we've sort of stepped into 2012 is that people are beginning to look up more than they ever have before, and the news is reporting, mainstream news is reporting sightings of things more openly than they ever have done. So I've been discussing, some of the things that people have been seeing in the last few introductions, and I've called that theme signs in the sky, but we're going to take a break from that, and I think what I'm going to try to introduce this week is let there be no doubt. And I'll get into that. That's the best way for me to say it, because it's looking at certain bits of information and just showing what it is factually, and letting there be no doubt as to its meaning and its importance. And the thing that I want to talk about tonight is actually a headline that caught my attention over the weekend. It was actually announced on the news on Sunday, and this is what, in terms of the mainstream news, this is what they like to do. They'll release certain information on certain days when people aren't paying attention. And this was released on Sunday. And of course, it's a very, very big deal. And it was released on Sunday when everybody obviously is not paying any attention to the news, but it's about the government having access to our emails and texts. Now, you may or you may not have heard about this, but I'd like to just read you a bit of this article that I did come across, because I think this is very important. There has been a growing movement towards our civil liberties being imposed on more and more over the last few years. And we are very much now in a draconian state. It's not that we're moving towards one. It's already here, and it's been here for quite some time, to be honest. But they've been doing it in steps. And of course, as you know, we had the issue last year with the two young boys who were charged over statements that they said on Facebook. Spike Lee has recently found himself in hot water for stating a few things on Twitter and releasing some private information in a tweet. We have all these wonderful things like social media, which allows us to express our opinions and what have you. But what we are finding is we are expressing our opinions, but our opinions are being watched very carefully. And we can actually land ourselves into quite a bit of hot water if we're not careful, just by freely expressing ourselves. So it's important that you are aware of this legislation that they are trying to push through. And be under no false illusions. It is coming, definitely. They're warning us now, and when they pass it, they're not going to tell us they've passed it. It will be like what happened back in 2011. We'll just wake up one day and find out that like what happened with 9/11, a Patriot Act was just passed through, and nobody really knew anything about it. And we'll just wake up one day, and this act will just be passed through, like the Digital Act that they passed through back in 2009, 2010, whenever that was. So this is just some of the detail from the article, and it says, ministers are preparing a major expansion of the government's powers to monitor the email exchanges and website visits of every person in the UK, according to reports. Under legislation expected in next month's Queen's Speech, internet companies will be instructed to install hardware enabling GCHQ, the government's electronic listening listening agency, to examine on demand any phone call made, text message and email sent, and website accessed in real time. And this was reported by the Sunday Times. A previous attempt to introduce a similar law was abandoned by the former Labour government in 2006 in face of fierce opposition. However, ministers believe it is essential that the police and security service have access to such communications data in order to tackle terrorism and protect the public. So that's sort of the basic of the basic premise they're putting forward as to the reason for the why they need it. As usual, they like to use the whole terrorism argument, but it's much bigger than that, as we all know. So I thought that I would just bring that to your attention. So let there be no doubt the state that we are living in right now. It is very much here, the Big Brother state that many of our alternative media writers have been talking about. Well, it's definitely here. And what are you going to do about it? How do you feel? So something to keep in mind. So all you have to do is just do a search on Google, something like UK government accessing emails, and you'll find all sorts of information, articles that have been written. And as I said, this information came out on Sunday. And who's paying attention on a Sunday? Let's be honest. So I'm going to take a break. I'm going to play you a track, and I'm going to get my guest on the line. And when I return, I will be joined by Stanley Stewart, and we're going to be having a very interesting conversation about modern wizardry. So stay tuned. Okay, so you're back with me. I am your host, Valentine St. Aubyn, and you are listening to Esoteric Discussions. I'm here every other Wednesday evening live on Peterborough FM, and I thought I would sort of relax the mood a bit. You may or may not have recognized that music. That was from the movie The Natural, and it's a very old movie from, I think it was from 1984, with Robert Redford, and the movie was called The Natural. And as we're talking about wizardry and nature and the elements around us, I thought that was a nice way to lighten the mood after the show beforehand, which was very young and energetic. So as I said, my guest tonight is Stanley Stewart, and he is a real life master wizard, and he's going to be joining me. I'm just going to open up his mic, make sure he is on the line. Stanley, are you there?
Yes, good evening.
Hello, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me. I know you're a very busy man, being interviewed by many, many people, and imparting your knowledge. I first came across your work through Nick Ashwan. I saw an interview of you on his show on Edge Media, and I found what you said to be really, really interesting, because I suppose like many of us, I just always assumed that wizardry was very much like, Wicca or witchcraft, but you sort of had a different approach to how you explained what actually wizardry was. So maybe we should just start the interview with yourself. You can introduce yourself to the audience tonight and tell us how you got started with all of this, and then we'll go into what wizardry actually is. So I'll hand it over to you to tell us a bit more about yourself.
Well, thank you very much. I guess it first started for me when I was 5 and I looked round and realised that I was different from people around me.
Mm-hmm.
That the things that I was coming out with was basically telling people how to get through the problems, how to resolve situations, and so on and so forth, which was mostly ignored, of course, because I was only 5 or 6.
Yeah. But you had a certain wisdom then, is what you're saying, yeah?
Yes, indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Wisdom that I brought with me when I came back to this form.
Yeah.
It was downloaded at the same time when I was 5. So basically, my life from that point has been how can we put it? Bringing that knowledge back out and up and into the physical reality.
Mm-hmm.
I've been a medium on the platform for quite a few years. Everyone started saying that I was a medium, and I thought, no, that doesn't sound quite right.
Mm-hmm.
It's something I'm doing, which is very helpful to people, but I knew there was more. That it's all very well, helping people to understand that there is life after death, and that the spirit does actually exist, and it does move on from this plane into other planes of existence, other dimensions. That there's a lot more to this reality that people think is this reality.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I started calling myself a wizard at about that point. Once somebody told me what the original meaning of the word was, which is wise philosopher.
Mm-hmm.
And I realised, yes, that's what I am, that's what I do. The wise philosophy being that, of course, that everything is one, and that philosophy will carry you through any and every single situation that you're likely to encounter.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, what else can I tell you about me?
Well, let's go back to your childhood, because I like how you started off, because I can relate to what you were saying when you say, you were like 5, and even at that point, you knew that you were different. And some of us just know that at a very, very young age. And sometimes it's also the experiences that come our way as well that just help to click that in place. And like for yourself, did you ever find yourself seeing the spirit world, feeling it in that sense? Did you ever maybe get a sense that you'd been here before? Did you have any of those kinds of experiences?
Well, not so much been here before, but more... let's see. One of my earliest memories was communicating with our cat on the farm that I brought up on. Do you want to hear the story?
I want to hear it.
It's a little bit lengthy.
No, go for it.
Well, basically, it was really bad weather. There was a small flood on the farm. I would have been about 7.
Mm-hmm.
I would have been about 7 at the time. And our farmyard cat came trotting up to me out of the rain into the barn where I was feeding the pigs at the time. And it didn't meow or anything. It just sat down and looked at me. And I looked back at it, and suddenly I had these images flash into my head of the wood pile, which is about 600 or 700 yards away.
Yeah.
And this image just kept flashing in my head over and over again. So eventually I headed out, and the cat followed me straight to the wood pile. And when I picked it up, when I started shifting the wood away, there was 4 kittens under there that were in serious danger of drowning.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I picked them up and brought them back, and put them safely in the store, and the cat probably ran up and started licking them and looked at me. Sort of gave a sort of, I don't know, one would say thank you in human terms, but it was more than that. It was like this sort of wave of emotion. And then probably ignored me from that point on.
Yeah.
So that was the first sort of experience as such after the initial waking up, shall we say. But then it started happening all the time then. I started getting images from dogs, from pigs, from the cows, from just about all the animals. Started sending images and impressions, and that went on for quite some time.
And there's a certain understanding that you had with the natural world around you in that sense. They weren't speaking in words, but in concepts and imagery, as you say, but you were understanding maybe what they were trying to impart to you.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
That lasted for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, and then just stopped abruptly.
Okay. Yeah.
Just stopped abruptly.
Sort of switched off, okay.
Because by then I was moving into other things. Like, mainly, I suppose, channeling information rather than receiving information. You see what I mean?
Yeah. So this is when you started to move into the mediumship work.
Well, didn't have that word at the time.
Okay, yeah, I suppose so.
Didn't have that word at the time.
Yeah, I suppose that's been introduced in, yes.
In my later years, yes.
Yeah.
I didn't actually hit the word medium until I was 24, I think.
Okay, all right.
But for a lot of those early years, I mean, I was doing things that I thought were totally natural and shocking, horrifying people around me.
Right, yeah. So when did you actually begin, let's say, the mediumship work, where you may have actually called? Did you call yourself a medium when you were doing that type of work, or did other people call you that?
Other people called me.
Other people called you that, and you said you didn't feel comfortable with that title. And what was the reason for that? Why did you not feel comfortable being called a medium?
Because I knew there was more. My inner knowing said, yes, okay, this is how they do it. What they're doing is quite straightforward. Gave a try myself, worked out exactly how it was being done, what level it was energy it was working on. And then, like a lot of other things that I tried and tested on my path. I said, yeah, okay, got that. Recognise where it's coming from, what level it's operating at, what the energy frequencies it's operating at. Move on.
Yeah.
and at this time I met Aberl Jones, who started asking me all the right questions, bringing the answers out from me, from the one that I was in touch with, and that brought about the Time Workshop book.
Which is available. Yeah, okay. And that's available on the website, isn't it? It can be bought from Amazon and was it Waterstones as well? So now you've touched upon something that's really interesting. I'd like to, because now we're moving into the wizardry. So you'd had this label of a medium, and you started to realize that, well, you're still more than that, and there's a bigger picture here. And I like how you've said that, because we do go through steps as we progress. Some people stop at certain stages, and some people keep expanding further and wider. And you felt that there was still more. So now take us into did you come up with the notion that you were a wizard, or did someone tell you that? How did you come across that?
Well, the word resonated with me. Is the best way to describe it. Because I'd actually started calling myself a wizard about 2 or 3 months before somebody actually told me what it meant. It was just a word that resonated with me, even though I was sort of unclear on its exact meaning. I knew it didn't mean what the films that were making.
Yeah. Because that's what everybody, obviously Hollywood is very responsible for the way that we understand a lot of things, and many people, will think wizard and they'll think Lord of the Rings, or now with the Harry Potter books as well. And obviously being a wizard, wizardry is something very old, and it's been around for a long time, and I suppose many misconceptions have been imposed onto it. So that's why I was wondering how would you have come to thinking that you might be that, So yeah, so go ahead, carry on with your story.
No, you got that wrong.
Okay.
No, I didn't think I might be that. I knew I was that.
Okay.
There's a difference.
Yeah, you knew. Okay.
It was that in a knowing, yes, this is what I am. What I've always been.
Although our interpretation of it is not correct, is that right? The way it's projected.
The way it's been projected
has
been heavily slanted by religious bodies, because true wizardry is a direct threat to them.
Yeah, of course.
Because we state that every single person can link to the one, to the source, to the all-knowing.
So let's talk about the one. So the one is a universal energy, yes, that exists in everything and is around everywhere. How do you define
absolutely
it?
Spot on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, no, because the reason why I say that is because obviously I've been looking at your website, and I find it very interesting. I find this information very interesting, and I can relate to what you mean by resonating. Because like you, I've never had the gift of ever being able to be a medium, but I have other kinds of gifts, I guess. But I've always been interested in certain information, and I've been on a very long journey myself. And the way that I like to maybe describe what maybe some people will call God, and I don't like the word God, because again that's been heavily slanted and used and abused for whatever.
And it ignores the other half of the equation, which was the goddess.
Exactly, it's not a full interpretation. That's right, absolutely, the god and the goddess, that's right. So I see things, when I talk about what could be there, I call it the universe, universal energy. That's the best way that I understand it. So that's why I ask, is that what you're meaning by the one? And when you say the one, is it like what we know that the witches call the force? I believe they use that term, the force. Is it the same thing?
The Well, this varies on the individual witch's understanding of what the force actually is.
Yeah, or maybe how they use it. Okay.
Or how they use it, indeed.
Same with the concept of God or even goddesses as well. Okay, so we have this energy, which is the one, and as you say, wizardry allows us to know that we're directly connected to this source. So how then does the concept then develop further? Where do we then go from there to understand more about wizardry?
Well, if we realise that everything is one, and that we are part of that one, and that everything around us is part of that one, and is connected to that one, then it opens up a new level of understanding, a new philosophy, which is a very old philosophy, but it's been updated. That everything is connected, therefore everything reflects everything else. That what we perceive is what we, through the one, has created, or the one is creating through us. Now, I have to be very careful how I choose these words, because the whole point of wizardry is that we hand our power up.
Yeah.
We do not use the power that we are aware of and that we could use. We hand it up for the source to use directly.
And this is why wizardry is not magic, as it's stated on the information within the website. It's not magic in that sense of what people might understand as magic. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Because magic is the individual discovering their own inner power source, discovering the outer energy, the force around them, and proceeding to use it for good or ill, for self-development or self-gratification, or for helping others, through healing, etc., etc., etc. But we as wizards take that one step further and say, hold on, this isn't actually what my responsibility. My responsibility is to hand this force, this power, back to the source, so the source can use it directly through us. We open the channel through which that force, the source, the one, can become more manifest into this world, to help rebalance this world, because this world is somewhat out of kilter. Yeah.
So, so the way that you would go about then interacting with this energy of the one is, let's say, so you really just hand over yourself to this energy. So do you? I mean, let's say, for example, you'd like to get your information out further and wider to people. So then how do you go about presenting yourself to the one to get that information out a bit further without it being you forcing yourself or pushing your own agenda or wishing in that kind of way? Hopefully I'm making sense with what I've just said.
Well, interestingly is that you just stated it. Basically, all we are doing is saying we are here,
and then everything comes to you. Is that kind of the process? You have the energy within you. You have that power there in your base, and then you attract what you need or what's of interest to you, the right things to you. Is that also the process?
Yeah, okay. On that level of understanding from which you stated that, yes, this is what appears to be happening, and when you see a wizard in operation, this is how you would perceive it to be doing. But as I stated a little bit earlier, what we are actually doing is handing ourselves up and allowing the source to do this through us.
Okay.
We of ourselves do nothing.
Okay.
We
right.
are the one do everything.
Okay.
But we can be perceived to be doing a lot of things.
So it's a very different approach to maybe how many of us are being taught to think about ourselves. I mean, obviously there's been this big movement with things like The Secret. I know that was very big a few years back, and it introduced a lot of people who really had never come across this kind of information to this idea of you can ask the universe what you want, you can order things, you can wish for things, and you can bring it to you, and then you would have all these different case studies of people doing these types of things and having things happen to them. But I suppose what you're the approach that you're then now introducing with the one is very different from that. It's taking the eye out of what's taking the eye out of it, isn't it? And it's more of a we.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly, which is why when I'm in full flow, shall we say, there's a lot of we's comes out.
Well, I have heard you say yes, we, the one. So, like currently, right now, you're connected to the one right now. Yeah.
Shucks, give myself away.
So, I mean, how often? I mean, do you have to sit for hours meditating to get into that state? How does one approach getting to that level? I mean, I obviously it's training and things, but let's say someone wants to go on this journey and learn about wizardry, maybe become a wizard. How do they start then? What's the first approach?
Well, the first approach is actually on our website. www.artandmodernwizardry.org, and it's the treeing exercise.
Okay, yeah, so let's get into treeing, because I found that interesting, yeah.
Have you actually tried it yet?
No, not yet, but yeah, I've been reading about it.
It's
I mean, I've done some of it, I suppose, over the years without realising what I'm doing, but explain to us what treeing is, because it's all very interesting.
Well, treeing is, first of all, recognising our physical existence by sending our roots into the ground, drawing on the energy of the earth, drawing it up all the way through us, out the top of our heads, into forming branches above our heads, reaching up into that universal source, the one, and allowing the one to flow back down, all the way down and back into our physical reality, back into the roots. And as you do this exercise, it removes all blockages, all mental blockages, emotional blockages, physical blockages, and brings you into attunement with that total oneness, that total one source that you actually are. It allows the one to actually start manifesting within you.
So you
rather than being separated out into mental, emotional, and physical.
And how many times a day would you do something like that? Is it once or as many times as
we
you feel?
We always recommend that you do it at least once a day, and as often as you wish thereafter, as you feel the need.
And do you get a sensation of relaxation when you do something like that? You start to feel comforted?
Relaxation hardly covers the word.
Yeah, okay. Uh-huh.
I suppose it's more a self-realization.
Mm-hmm. Well, you start to feel connected to everything, don't you, I suppose?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It brings you into that connective state. Just because the one is starting, the energy of the one is starting to flow through you, you become more and more conscious of the connectivity of everything around you.
Mm-hmm. And would you say then, when you start to have that feeling, you start to have faith within the one that, all the doubts, all the worries, concerns about how to do this or where to go next, or that all just gets pushed away and you can just walk within your power? I suppose that's the overall goal of what you're trying to achieve, is to remove the obstacles that we all suffer with, because of the mental chatter that goes on in our minds and things. So would you say that by doing this type of exercise you become more and more confident, and you begin to have the faith within that source, within the one?
I'd remove the word faith though and replace it with certainty.
Certainty, okay, yeah. Mm-hmm. That sounds better than faith though, because
it's a lot better than faith.
Yeah, because faith
is something you take on trust.
Yeah, and it's sure. Blind. That's right. Yeah. Okay.
But
so
but with this exercise, there is no faith. There is just knowing.
This is knowing.
Just total knowing.
Well, I just find it very, very interesting, and as I say, it's very different from I think a lot of where they're trying to take, the average person, in the media and what they're presenting, and because, obviously you must be aware too, we've just been inundated with a lot of occult television shows and things like that, geared at the children, and there's a lot more, there's a bigger picture here besides just, playing with a spell or playing with things like that. There's a power within you, and I think that gets lost when when they're moving our minds towards these other types of things that distract us in that way. That's just my opinion. How do you feel about all of the occult movies, occult television shows that are being bombarded that are being bombarded in our modern society right now on the mainstream television and in the movie theatres and things? How do you feel about that?
It's a sign that humanity is starting to wake up.
Yeah. I can relate to that.
That people, even if they're doing it with trepidation, are beginning to recognize that maybe they are more than they've been told they are. And that these things are actually possible.
Yeah.
Whether these things are negative or positive, these things are possible because we as human beings are creating them. And once we recognize that, once you start to recognize that actually we are creating this, then you can start looking at the negative and saying, well, perhaps it's time we stop creating you.
Yeah, and move on from
Maybe
that.
Maybe it'd be a good idea to switch you off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which can be done through the treeing, through
to refocus your energy. Yeah.
With that one energy that we all are. Because every man, woman, and child on the planet can be a wizard. is a wizard.
Yeah, and this is what you do say. It's not as if you have to be chosen to, we all have this within us inherently. It's just knowing that we have this. So as you said, if someone was interested, the first thing they do is they learn this exercise with the treeing. Then where do they go from next? With the journey. Then once they master that, or I guess you're always trying to master that, where do you go to next with with learning to be a wizard?
Well, you contact us through the website. For those who can contact us through the website.
Mm-hmm.
Through those who can't, well, as more and more people are becoming aware of us, like you have become aware of us,
yep.
Then people are going to start getting in touch with us, and the one will show them how to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Because no matter what path anybody is following, the one is always on that path somewhere, helping to guide them and push them towards the path that they need to be on.
Mm.
And once they start listening, and if they start doing the treeing exercise, they start listening.
Yeah, and you get tuned in a different way. Yeah. So, how do you feel about the time period that we're in right now? Would you say that we are in a definitely in a very transitional period right now, and we could, as humanity, be moving forward in a more positive, evolutionary way? Would you agree to that?
I think I just said it.
Yeah, okay. Well, you did, yes, you did.
I think I just said that.
You did, yeah, you did.
Because we wizards are now standing up and saying, we are here.
Yeah. Well, as I say, I came across you on Edge Media, which, for those of us in the UK, is a fantastic channel, those that can get it, and obviously you're reaching a great audience by being seen.
And I've done 2 radio shows with USA Paranormal Radio as well.
Okay, so yeah, you're really branching out now, yeah. Well, I'm hoping that this kind of information gets wider and wider. I mean, that's why I do the show that I'm doing on a community radio station. Peterborough is just a little small city, but
yes, I do know Peterborough.
Yeah, but we, the opening is here, and I chose to do it through this medium so that I could reach people that may be interested, but maybe never really thought about these types of things, but would be interested if they heard it, rather than give it to the same people within the same communities all the time, which is just how it's been in the past. So I do think there are some positive things moving forward, as you see as well. But I do think also there is a lot of background noise that needs to be toned down as well, which I suppose will come in time, as more and more people find their own power base, because that's what it is, I suppose, isn't it? It's connecting your power base to this one's power base, and we become a greater force, a greater unity,
a greater balance.
A greater balance, yeah. Well, I'd like to...
And that's what wizards do, we balance.
Balance, yes, yeah. Well, I'd like to thank you, Stanley, for a very interesting conversation. The time has flown. I knew it would. We've been talking for a good 40 minutes or so, 45 minutes. So I think the information you've given us tonight, and you've taken a very, I guess for some people, very out there concept and have brought it in a very succinct way, and made it very simple, and that's the thing that I like with the information I've read on your website, is that wizardry can be for everybody, and it's up to you to take that journey and learn more about it. So the website is www.artofmodern wizardry.org, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And you do seminars and things like that as well? Do you host the seminars yourself, or do others do that type of stuff in as a unit? Different people do bits and pieces here and
well,
there.
at the moment, people who are starting to hear of us asking us to do talks in different places. Because I'll be doing a talk at the Beacons of Light Fair in Brecon on Saturday.
Okay, yeah. And are you going to be anywhere else in the next month or so?
Well, nobody's asked me yet, but we're always open.
You're always open to go in and give talks and things. Okay, so that's something for people to know. Okay, well, I'm very honoured to have been able to speak to you tonight. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, no, the honour is ours.
No, I really enjoyed it. So, and it's got me thinking about a few things. So, yeah, I like that. And, as I was saying at the beginning of the show, I like this type of information, but it's always you have to find the right people to who can voice it. And I just knew I'd found the right person when I heard you, on with Nick Ashron. So thank you very much for joining me, Stanley, and I wish you all the best. And I will send you this MP3 as soon as I can, and so you can circulate it and do, and into your networks.
How about doing one other thing for yourself?
What's that?
Do the treeing exercise.
I will do it. Well, I've done stuff like that in the past. I mean, it's I've done meditation and
this is slightly different.
Okay, yeah, but I'll approach it from the way that you've explained it, and see where that takes me. You never know, I might be joining you with one of your seminars or somewhere down the line,
Well, we're already in contact on Facebook.
Yeah. And that's the other thing, you have a Facebook group as well, don't you, for people?
Yes, we've got an open group on Facebook, the Wizardry of Life, Light and Love. We've got 2 pages on Facebook, Wayfinders Academy and Wayfinder Wizards. And there's also a student group on Facebook as well.
Okay, so you're very easy to find, so very visual. So that's good to know.
It's time.
It is time, yeah, and why not use all of these mediums that are there to get the word out? So, yeah.
And wonderful people like you are helping.
Well, we're trying, the little foot soldiers, But okay, well, I'm going to close your mic. Thank you again for joining me, and
thank you very much for inviting us.
Thank you, and that's Stanley Stewart. As I said, he's a master wizard, and I feel all relaxed and all chilled out, I have to say. Very interesting information, and if if it resonates with you, please do look at the website, even if it's just to get an idea of what wizardry is and not what you might think it is. Please do check it out. But that's it. We have come to the end of another show. I will be back not next Wednesday, but the Wednesday after that, and I'll be having my part 2 discussion with an interview with an indigo Thengo. I've had a few people say he was just mind-blowing, and he was. But until next time, keep your eyes on the stars.
Pay close attention. One station, many communities. It's your radio, Peterborough FM.